Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem, Rakakadash. Double honors, the and apostles of the great millstone, who are teaching this truth with sincerity. And shout out to the Akims out there on the four quarters of the earth proclaiming this truth. Bracha the Yahweh, Bracha the Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem, Rakakadash, Bracha Tum. So, 2026, the year of apostasy and of sellouts. And like everything else, so Esau's being sought out. He's being found out. You know, everything's been exposed at Esau and their plans and the things that they've already done. And a lot of people that were able to hide before, a lot of these Edomites that were able to hide before, well, they're getting exposed on another level. Because we, the prophets, have been prophesying against who these devils are, you know, and that pretty much so, that he rules on the left side and we rule on the right. You know, that is the house of David being raised up. But only 1/3 of us are in part of the house of David, while the rest, you know, are wicked and follow the wickedness, you know. And so, you know, what's going to happen is they're going to get caught in the middle of the judgments coming to Esau, Edom, you know, because if you hadn't guessed, war is all around. Wars and rumors of war, famines, earthquakes in diverse places, pestilences. Yeah, they're talking about another pandemic, you know, and they're really scheming things, right? And martial law already in Minneapolis, as well as plans for other great cities, right? You know, because they want to turn everything into those strong cities. So like everything else, so they have to have a good false flag. And like everything else, so in a few days, we'll see, you know, if they go back into another government shutdown. Because again, we already had a partial shutdown last week. Not a lot of news about that, but hey, you know, they got so many distractions going on, right? Because supposedly Trump is, well, we know that he met with Iran over the so-called nuclear program, which he's using as a pretext to attack Iran, because the Israeli state tells him to, the least of the flock, Amalek, drawing them into this war, which is, it's not a winnable war, not for Esau, Edom, but you see, there's all plans of the Most High, you know, because again, all these places were Confederate, they, you know, with taking down the Israelites, and like everything else, though, the Most High, Yahweh, is going to send Yahweh Shai and the angels to destroy this place once and for all, and destroy the rest of the Edomites as they are engaged in World War III, you know. And like everything else, though, he's mustering the hosts to the battle. That is the Lord of hosts, which are the weapons of his indignation, you know. You can't argue with that, you know, that the angels are the ones that are whispering into these leaders, you know, to do these things, right? Where evil thoughts are entering into their mind and devising a thought, you know. So like everything else, though, it's just a matter of time till Putin actually does go in and actually does something about the Israeli state. Right now, the rest of those Arab states can't really do anything, even though they're Confederate. They cannot really do anything to stop the Israeli state from what they're doing, and nor their plans to attack Iran, except that there is some things happening behind the scene. Even Sergei Lavrov has intervened and said, you know, that diplomacy would be the best thing, you know, which is what they normally say. But also, weapon systems have already been in Iran just in case another attack is there. They've been making plans with that because they didn't call on Russia's help last year. And they got attacked anyways under the pretext of, you know, a denuclearization, if you will, you know, to agree to not enrich uranium, which has always been the pretext. And while they were in negotiations for that, they got attacked. So they're not going to be as stupid this time. But while that's all going on, well, you got this war Ukraine going on as well, you know, because the EU is finding themselves busted trying to rely on the U.S. for, you know, their energy needs and everything. So they have to get into this war, you know. So it's all plans of the Most High. Esau Edom is falling apart, and like everything else, though, Trump's tariffs is destroying the American economy, which is what he was meant to do. That's why he was put in the place that he is. And these people are so stupid that they believe everything that Donald Trump tells them, or they just straight up fucking hate his guts and think that the Democrats are going to have any better solution, when really, truly, though, this is all part of it. A house that's divided will not stand. So these people ain't standing at all. They have nothing to stand on. Their president has failed them, you know, because it doesn't matter which one's in power. They have failed in every way possible. They can't even run the country, you know. They can't pass a budget. They have to keep kicking that can down the road, or just finding some way to compromise with all this overspending, because the U.S. is, and at least $36 trillion of debt that's actually recorded. But the U.S. debt clock, if you ever looked at it, you could just see that it keeps on tanking. And it tanks a lot every day, and the numbers just keep on downsizing, right? Gold is at an all-time high, and so is silver. Gold bars, I think, are worth nearly 1,000 per gold bar, maybe more than that. Or was it 5,000 or 10,000? I mean, it's huge. It's huge. And when that happens, though, that means that the currency has nothing to stand on, because, of course, Babylon the Great, their currency used to be derived upon the silver standard. Silver certificates were given in exchange for silver dollars, which used to be equal, but now, it is depreciated so much that, a silver dollar is going to be worth way more than a dollar. The U.S. dollar, which is now based on the petro, well, it's declined since Nixon had already made it the petrodollar. As you know, Trump has been desperate by taking Venezuela and by threatening these other Gulf states that have enriched oil, because, again, it's all about controlling the oil, but Russia already has its monopolies because of the fact that, the BRICS members, 2 of them are Iran and Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, so, that's all starting to dissolve to where the U.S. dollar doesn't have any dominance in the world. So they have to blame it on the shutdown. They have to blame it on something. And like everything else, so they already have a replaced currency, better known as stablecoin over here, But they're all about to go to war very soon. And they're going to require everyone to be implanted with a device to be able to track hold of spending, right? I mean, isn't that what it's always about, the spending bill, how much to fund and all that? So they have to keep track of their spending. So they got to track everyone for what they're spending and, have to have approval. And like everything else, though, we know what that is. We know that that's the mark of the beast, and that the mark of the beast is, in fact, that microchip that they plan to implant everyone with to tell everything that they do, what purchases they make, and where they make it. You got social credit scores. Oh, yeah, that's there. Even though they, say that it's not like China, it is. It's just that China just happens to be the main model, and that's all done by design. But, other things happening, right? These, false flag events and these crisis actors being created for the Minneapolis thing, because that's one of the strong cities, and they always use Minneapolis because that's where the George Floyd shooting was, which was all manufactured, But like everything else, though, he only has a short time to rule, and his time is just about up, and he knows that. That's why Donald Trump in his first term referred to us as the prophets of doom. Do not listen to these prophets of doom, because we were telling you the truth that Esau ain't got nothing to stand on, that he's just about ready to go out, that he's on his last leg. Revelation chapter 12, verse 12. Rejoice, you heavens, and you that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and to the sea, for the devil has come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. So like everything else, that short time, that short space to rule is just about up. Every kingdom has its rulership. And, of course, Babylon the Great, America, is at its 250th year. And all empires usually are done away with in 250 years. So think about that. It ain't got much longer to go. And like everything else, a lot of us are going to be martyred. We're also going to, be, part of being a martyr is, of course, to be hunted down and, tracked and pretty much, those that resistance, get put into the FEMA camps. The FEMA camps are there. And that's what's coming of all this martial law, because they're not really deporting people. They tell you that they are, but ISIS is nothing more than a task force, but it's just to be used as a guise. But they ain't just arresting them. No. Anybody who just speaks out against them, because the Karen that they shot, the agitator that they shot was an Edomite. Had nothing to do with Samoans or with Latinos or anything like that. It had everything to do with just pretty much, though, come down on anybody who detests what they do. And that's just it. That's the devil having great wrath. And like everything else, though, we know that we're in the time now that Yahweh Shai is gathering his elect. And he's going to do this miraculously when those bombs shall drop. Revelation chapter 12 and verse 10. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now has come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our power and the power of his Hamashiach, for the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our power day and night. So like everything else, so Esau's about to be cast down, about to be destroyed. And that's how he did fall from heaven, in the essence of falling from his kingdom. These, if you will, Luciferians, these people that call themselves light bearers, the Illuminati, the New World Order, lots of names for it, but nonetheless, though, their kingdom is about to fall. And that great dragon, verse 9, was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceived the whole world, and he was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him, meaning that his military might, all that was destroyed. In that same hour, when Babylon the Great was consumed by lake, becoming a lake of fire, also Yahushua and the angels also destroyed this place. You see how that works? At the same time, judgment has come, right? Better known the day of the Lord of Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai. And like everything else, though, we pray to be a part of that elect. Verse 11, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and loved not their lives unto the death. So like everything else, though, if you die in this truth, refusing the mark of the beast, but you've been faithful to this, then you're going to be spared from the upcoming destruction, which is to be cast alive in that lake of fire, which is the nuclear destruction coming to this place. Well, it just started raining. Well, we teach in season and out of season, right? Hey, a lot of things are going on, but there is a storm coming. And like everything else, though, we've been preparing for that storm for quite some time, because that's what we, the elect, do. We know that this devil's on the move, because we know Yahushua and the angels are on their move. That's why you're seeing them come past our camps. And that's why we're seeing Esau trying to push his agenda a lot more quicker. See, like everything else, though, the Most High is speaking, speaking through us, and then just speaking through the prophecies, speeding this thing up, because like everything else, though, the time has come that, well, we ain't going to be out here much longer, When you've seen all these things come to pass, and we've warned you about them, and then you see the implementations, it's just a matter of time. So, we're echoing this before all the judgments come. The Most High has always sent prophets to warn of the times to come, and we're in that time now. When he shall come down having great wrath, knowing that he hath but a short time. You see, his short time, his rulership is just about up. All empires last about 250 years maximum. So we know that the time for Babylon is just about up. But unlike all other empires, it's going to, well, actually, the same as all world empires, right? Because it is a world empire. It's about to collapse. Because, you have two horns like a lamb, but speak as a dragon, bringing in more draconian laws, lockdowns, regulations. To where pretty much, though, all that you touch, all that you see, will all be regulated. And they're going to track and trace everyone. And anybody who takes that tracking device and implants it is going to be judged. Judgment day is coming, The day of the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahushai, is drawing nearer. And it's happening in that valley of decision. Valley of Jehoshaphat, You always keep your eyes on Syria, Iran, Iraq, all those areas. Libya. Oh, yeah. They just assassinated Muammar Gaddafi's son just recently. Salif Gaddafi was also assassinated by Mossad last week. They killed him. And then you have talks about them trying to get the Ayatollah, So they're desperate. They're desperate to regain control because they lost control. And like everything else, though, they want to gain control of their narrative, too, because the narrative is always falling apart, man. Just, people just ain't buying into that mainstream media. Now, that's been a war on information for quite some time. That's part of another reason that they're going to lock this down, right? Because we've been telling the truth for quite some time, that even their own media has to tell the truth now. You see how that works? Because if you don't believe us, well, even Esau's media is going to have to, tell you what's going on. So it's everywhere. Yeah, it's coming down pretty hard, by the way. And
said it 5 times at least. You guys are not realizing what grid down means. Society as you know it will end. There won't be any work. There won't be any hospitals to go to. There won't be any police department that will come to your aid. No one is going to save your ass. You won't be able to travel anywhere after about 36 hours. So if you're going to bug out to a location, you better do it within that time period. And don't expect to stop for gas because gas stations will be closed. Grocery stores will be closed. Don't expect to stop by your ATM and get money because that's going to be shut down. Everything that we use in society right now is tied to the electrical grid. And the number one thing that's sucking the electrical grid dry is data centers. Because they did not build the infrastructure. And don't tell me they did, because they did not. And it's taxing our grid, and it's going to tumble. Everything's going to go down. Nothing will be as it is right now. And when the grid goes down, people are...
So like everything else, though, they're planning to shut down the grid, right? You've heard the stories about EMP. Well, they don't even need to do an EMP because there was no structure to begin with. And that's what they're planning to do, is a worldwide blackout. You see, like everything else. And then once they got it reinstalled, well, that's when everything changes. And you have 36 hours to bug out. Well, we're not teaching you to go and bug out and build a shelter somewhere and all that. No, what we're telling you is to get right with the Lord, Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai. Because 36 hours is not a long period of time. But we're telling you to get right with the Most High before all these things transfer. If you're right with the Most High, He's going to guide you on where to go. Some of you will have to be martyred. And others, are going to escape the destruction, right? Because, again, this is a punishment for the wicked. But some of us just have to be martyrs. That's just the way that it is. But if you're a martyr, if you're beheaded for this thing, if you're brought before trial and all that, well, you were able to escape a lot of the said perils. Think about that, though. So, at the end of the day, though, salvation is coming. And that's for those that don't take the impending implant, the microchip, which is going to come about all this, because that's how they're going to do it. After the blackouts, they're going to come in with their new world order. But during that time period, man, everybody's going to just totally, it talks about that in 2nd Ezra chapter 15 in particular, right? Because it reiterates what was in Revelation chapter 12. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, right? But yet 2nd Ezra chapter 15 also goes into that same thing. So I'm just going to get that, Yeah, 2nd Ezra chapter 15, verse 14. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh. And one people shall stand up a fight against another with swords in their hands, which the modern day sword is the guns, guns a-blazing, if you will. Because you're seeing the chaos that's happening in these cities, and it's going to get even worse when they actually have a blackout. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another, which shall not regard their kings or princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. Right? Because you ain't going to have police, you ain't going to have nothing. All of this is going to be shut down. Man shall desire to go into a city, but shall not be able. Because of their pride, the cities shall be troubled. Houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. It's a kill or kill. Be killed world out there. Man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword, and spoil their goods because of lack of bread, and for great tribulation. So, all this is coming. We warned you about it, and now they're warning you about it, right? You have insiders telling you the very thing that we've read. So you can't say that you wasn't warned. And that's what we are to do, is to sound a warning, to blow that trumpet before the judgment comes. So hopefully all this has been edifying. For that I want to say Brak of the Yahweh, Brak of the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash, Wa Abad Babal, Brak of Jehovah Elect, Shalom.